AJ, I think we have most of the participants here. I guess we can start
Super.
now.
Great. Thanks, Vijay. Thanks all for joining us. I'm ready for a glass of beer. This is the last session, and I think most of my team in India would be ready for breakfast now, a heavy breakfast. It's pretty late. And East Coast also wrapping up. Again, if you are joining us for the first time, this is Abhishek. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Foreseeable Data. And in the last session today, we wanted to give you a glimpse of what's to come. What is the roadmap that lies ahead of us? And you have heard this from many of us and also some of our Polly users in their different stories as to what Polly is today. So a quick recap. We have used our proprietary IP to scalably curate multi-omics data from different repos. And specifically, we mean like, talking about data sets from Geo, GTEx, single-cell data sets, Metabolomics Workbench, and a variety of them have been curated through our pipeline and are made available to users in Polly. And this already has demonstrated a lot of value for them and their R&D labs. And you got to get a glimpse of some of that in the last couple of hours. But today, in the last session, we will talk about what lies ahead of us. And before we get into this, we also want to stress on the rationale as to why we are doing what we are doing. And that at the core lies, you can trace this into the bet that we are making about what the future of drug discovery will be like. We, right now, have been on a collaborative journey with more than 3 dozen of our customers and partners in life sciences, biotech, and pharma companies to create that future of drug discovery. Our bet number one is the future will be multi-omics. And the companies, therefore, will have to learn how to deal not just with the volume of data, but a variety of them, and at an incredible velocity. And the veracity of the data has also to be confirmed. And these are all challenges that will be present and have to be dealt with. And finally, the value of this multi-omics data, which I think will be used across the entire value chain of the discovery stage, all the way from finding and identifying a target to designing a clinical trial. And in response to this growth of multi-omics data and the promise of it, the teams of biotech and pharma companies will also change. That's our bet number two. What do I mean by that? That's something that I referred to in my opening remarks, is that right now a monolithic entity of a bioinformatics scientist exists. And we argue that will be divided into very specialized roles, all the way from software engineering to ML expertise. And again, you heard that from Gautam as well, from Al-Nailam, who was stressing that he's a computational biologist, a very good one at that, but not quite a software engineer. And that's a distinction that is often ignored by biotech companies and pharma companies as they make hiring decisions, but that will not be sustainable in years to come. And now this new team of the future, right, will be using a very different set of tools, a number of them actually, all the way from Git and ELNs and whatnot, Dropbox, Box, you name it, a huge variety of them. And that will also be an interesting journey. So these are the two bets that we're making, which is why we are committed to create this lab. That's the future we want to build. We have been doing that with a bunch of our early adopters. So closing, closely looking into the data evolution that has happened, and all of us in this room and have been beneficiary of the technological breakthroughs in NGS and MS platforms, among others. And this has led to a number of papers that often routinely talk about multi-omics data sets. And the resolution has also changed quite a lot. We have information from single cells now, and some exciting companies that are coming up claim to generate two different kind of omics data set from the same single cell. So that's the future that lies ahead of us. And we firmly believe that the future is multi-omics. And how does all of that come together is the main crux of today's last session. And here is the schematic of how we have structured the talk as well, and how we are thinking about Polly's evolution. So at the core, at the center, is what we call the enterprise atlas. And if you look at the left, there are two elements that contribute to it. One is Omix Atlas, and the second core element is your data, an experiment that you might have done last week or last month, or arguably both of them. And on the right, you see two ways in which you can take stuff out. You can consume the data that lies in Enterprise Atlas. And that could be a data scientist, a software engineer, or a bench scientist, a chemist, or biologist. You can do that right now in two ways, on Polly and outside Polly. And the presentation will be like where I, in the next few slides, will cover the left side of it as to what goes into Enterprise Atlas. And Shwetab, my co-founder and CTO, will talk about what are the ways to take data out of it to extract value from Enterprise Atlas. So with that, we'll briefly introduce you to Omix Atlas and your data, which contributes to make Enterprise Atlas. So Omix Atlas, as I have suggested in early talk, and Surbhi and others have also referred to it, will be the largest one-stop platform for the cleanest curated multi-omics data from a variety of repos. And here is a list of some of the omics data set that we'll be bringing onto Polly in quarters to come. We already have some of them. And before the end of this quarter, we will release 40,000 transcriptomic data sets that have been curated through our AI model on Polly for its users. And in the next 4 to 5 quarters, we have a very aggressive pipeline agenda to bring other omics data sets. And some of the repositories have been available here. And just having all of them at one single platform where our user would not have to worry about, hey, you know what, GTEx changed the version of the data frame, data structure last quarter, and now anything that is built on top of that is undermined, compromised. So if you're a Polly user, you don't have to worry about any of that. And just having all of them in one single platform in a form that you can reliably use is a huge value add, and we'll be doing that on Polly in a very aggressive fashion. We again invite you to be part of that conversation. Join us, help us, get better. But that is the roadmap that we are on. And all of this will be driven broadly following the guidelines as described by FAIR principles. NIH and many other stakeholders have published and talked about that in many papers. There are some very good communities and forums around that. We will be guided by the FAIR principles in this effort. Now, a key element of bringing a different multi-omics data sets and the scientific rationale, if you will, is that we as a company believe that this is the place where 1 + 1 becomes greater than 2. So if you are able to integrate two different kind of data sets, you have a better shot at understanding the cellular or clinical phenotype. That's our scientific premise. So a key ask from Omix Atlas is that you should be able to integrate different data sets, different omics data sets for samples. For example, if you talk about a specific example, let's say you have liver data sets in metabolomics from an experiment done by some lab, and a different lab or the same lab generated transcriptomic data sets also on the same liver cells or different cell lines. You may want to integrate that to be able to generate hypothesis. So the utility of being able to integrate this is again makes the sum is greater than the parts itself, and this will again be guided by FAIR principles. And to the best of our knowledge, there's no commercial platform available which allows you to integrate different repos which include different kind of metabolomic data sets. And that is what we will be a big part of our focus going forward in months to come. I also wanted to comment briefly on the velocity of data that will be coming up on Polly. And here we have benchmarked ourselves against one of the more commonly referred, used competitor. A citation is there from IPA Kiagen tools. And today, to the best of our knowledge, based on published reports, we are bringing 4 times more data sets on Polly every month. And with improvements that are imminent on our ML models and connectors, we anticipate this fold chain to go up by twice as much. So soon, in a quarter or less, we'll be bringing 8 times more data set than our closest competitor. I have already indicated that the version changes on some repositories like GTEx and TCGA and DepMap, you will not have to worry about it because that will be taken care of on day 1 when they show up, they are made available on Polly. Now, both the volume and the velocity and the variety is meaningless only if the quality of the data is high, right? So we are also committed to make sure that you as a scientist, as a user of Polly, are spending your time and attention on data that is worth spending time on. So we have built some analytical QC metrics for all the omics data set that is on Polly. and that's customizable, but that already comes with some analytical curation before it reaches to Polly. And the other element of this is the FAIR metrics that we have defined, which is again based on a publication that is indicated on this slide. We have tweaked it for, in this case, for transcriptomic data sets that's already 100% higher. And again, our roadmap includes a plan, an agenda to make this even 50% more better. So what that means is any geo data set, a transcriptomic data set that will be available in Polly will be more findable, more accessible, more interoperable, and more reusable compared to the same data set on its parent repository on geo in this case. Right? And this is something that we take very seriously, because if the quality is compromised, you would not find as much value. And so, as much as we worry about the velocity and the volume and variety of data, the quality is pretty essential to our success as well. Now, again, I'll briefly touch upon the other element that feeds into Enterprise Atlas before I hand it over to Shwetab, is your data. And again, as I already referred, the teams and the biotech and pharma companies today are using a huge variety of sources to get data. CROs, their internal platforms, mass spec platforms, NGS platforms, file storage. You have multiple solutions like Box and network drives, S3 buckets. You have omics processing software that you build or you licensed. You have databases, Postgres, SQL, you name it. LIMS solutions, ELNs, the papers that you might have read just last week or last month or a few years back. And all of these come together in a very unstructured fashion. They enrich you, they drive your R&D agenda. What we are planning to do is, as indicated in those dotted lines in different colors, green and purple and red and all those colors, we will build the connector. And that data that lives in your ELN will be curated and harmonized, where the metadata is now integratable and comparable across different experiments. And in principle, integratable with the Omix Atlas that we have already built. And that's where, again, we are introducing another layer of network effect, where 1 + 1 becomes again greater than 2. The public plus proprietary together becomes greater than individually each one of them. So these are the two key elements that will populate and build an enterprise atlas that will be very custom and specific for a particular R&D group in a particular organization. That's our vision. That's what we want to create. And we have not quite delved into the timelines of this, but we're not talking about a hypothetical 3 to 5 year time frame. This is imminent. In that sense, we're talking about a 6 to 12 month timeline. A lot of this, that will be our focus in the next year to come. Now, with this, the next question becomes, as I have referred to earlier, as to how do you take this out and use it. And for that, I Shwetab will take us home and talk about the second part.
Thank you, Abhishek. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I think insofar, Abhishek's presentation, what we talked about was how do you make your data machine actionable, right? And how do you enrich your data with data that is, gold standard data, let's say, that is publicly available. And those combined together, let's say, become the enterprise atlas. So you've reached a point, let's say, in your journey, hopefully, where your data is not only machine actionable, but it's also enriched with gold standard data. And together you're ready to sort of analyze it and do more on that. And there are two broad forks here, which is what we see is one of them is that you can do on Polly. And for example, in a couple of previous conversations, we covered what exactly can you do on Polly, and there's a variety of tools there. So we'll talk a little bit more about where that effort is going. And the other part is outside Polly, where, let's say, you want to take this data and use it somewhere else, whether that's your internal infrastructure or any other place. So how will that work? So moving on from this slide, we'll first focus on just what will you be able to do on Polly. And many of these things, as you would see on your screen, are possible even today, but they will get much further in the next months to come. So let me talk very briefly about what can you do today. So for example, you can run Jupyter Notebooks on our platform in a very interactive way. As multiple speakers have referred to, you don't have to worry about the infrastructure. Your tools can scale within, let's say, Jupyter or other interactive environments. You can add third-party applications, and we showed you a couple of examples already. So something like Cell by Gene or LMaven if you use mass spec. And again, that benefits from the same infrastructure. So very scalable and something that we manage. So that's why the fully managed part. And finally, given we're talking a lot about machine learning and other kind of big data approaches, a lot of them are things that take time to run. And let's say you have models which will take many days to tune and therefore be ready to be deployed. You can also do that on our platform today. But we're going much further in that. And I think the big learning for us over the last, I would say 6 months or a year has been that not only is it important to have these tools, and all of them in themselves have to become better, but we have to be able to connect them into a seamless user experience. Because again, how this is something that Shefali referred to in her conversation, Abhishek referred to in his as well, is that more and more life sciences R&D teams are very cross-functional. They have data engineers, bioinformaticians, people who use UIs, people who use interactive environments. So how do all of these come together? We think that's where a lot of value lies to be unlocked, and that's what our focus is going to be. And of course, with all of that, you would be able to deploy your algorithms, your models, with our tooling. By our tooling, we mean that we will provide you tooling that makes it easier for you to just worry about what your models are, how should they read data, how should they let's say calculate a particular score, the science of it, and you will be able to leave the rest of it to us. That's the direction that we are going in. And again, I think we have achieved a lot, and we will go much further in that. Again, just to add a plugin here, you can always work with our customer solutions team as well, and they do an incredible job of enabling many customers like you, as you have heard already in multiple user conversations. So a fully managed stack for novel methods, and further next to that is where there are a lot of methods which are, as we say, not so novel, where they are already ready and you just want to be able to use them and not have to reinvent the wheel. And what we're doing for that is kind of developing a library, and you'll hear us talk about this in a couple of different ways. One in terms of resources, so whether those are small pieces of algorithms, what we call components, or whether those are out-of-the-box computational environments, or whether those are supported applications like LMaven or Cell by Gene is today on the platform. We're increasing this library, and the goal is to significantly increase that pace, just as we're increasing the pace for bringing data onto the platform, so that we are adding tools to the platform every week. And again, you can seamlessly combine them together to be able to create your methods or your workflows using either your own algorithms or algorithms or tools that we provide. And underneath all of that is an infrastructure that ensures fair for analysis too. And that's a theme that we have not touched upon a great deal in this particular conversation. We wanted to keep the focus on fairness or fair, what fair means for data. But it means a lot for analysis as well. And if you come to our platform, you'll see that you can version, you can see the history, you can recall. And that's what we mean by fair analysis. So Abhishek, if you could go on to the next one. Finally, on the platform, you would be able to collaborate on what we call live data or living data, whether that is in form of dashboards. You already saw some examples of that, which I, for one, find really cool. But they'll go further, and you will be able to collaborate, comment on that, share that, and not have to go out of context of your data. Let's say to a slide deck, which always has to be updated manually to be able to use that. And similarly, on our workspaces, there's something that again is kind of goes unnoticed because it's the glue connecting everything. You can put your files, you can version them, you can keep large amounts of data, and it's very seamless for that, whether you want to bring your data or take it and connect it to your applications, all your applications right back to the same place. And that's again somewhere where you can collaborate, real-time collaborate with your colleagues really, really well. Moving on. Now, this is kind of what is new. I would say completely new in this particular conversation. And this is based on a lot of feedback that we have been getting from a lot of our users, people like you, who have been asking us as to how do you integrate Polly to their platform, to things, to environments where they already work, and for whatever reason, they also want to be able to use Polly's data curation infrastructure over there. And so far, I think till now we have not had a great answer to that. But I think over the next 3 to 6 months, you will see that change very dramatically. And we're talking about two of the strategies here. Again, not so much on the details, but the strategy about how we are thinking is one. Of course, there are APIs and a lot of modern tooling. And is about APIs. And again, for those who don't deal with APIs very often, APIs are protocols to let two pieces of software talk to each other. So yeah, that's what they are pretty much. So we will release, I think, what should be very good, very useful APIs. And API design itself is a challenge, as anybody who on this call has designed any kind of protocol will recognize. So we'll release APIs that you should be able to use it anywhere, virtually anywhere, right? So any tool that you use or you want to use Polly's data there, you can work with your colleague and somebody in your team who is more familiar with coding or more familiar with engineering. They can configure that for you. So that works for everything. The other part is the R and Python SDKs, and there's a particular reason why we are specifically talking about R and Python, because we believe these are the two most common tools that are out there for you to be able to use Polly's data. So whether you're working in, let's say, RStudio locally, or you use another platform which has hosted Jupyter notebooks, and of them there are many, you would be able to stream our data and use them right there. And while doing all of that, I think the cool part is that you won't have to worry about the source data being changed. The source data will retain, will be versioned. You can use multiple platforms and just get the source data from Polly and put it back there. And so you have one source of truth, which again, I'm sure you guys know is really critical. So that's one way to bring Polly to your workflow, rather than as earlier we have so far talked about getting your method on Polly. This is where we are going in the other direction. And if we move on to the next one, this is for users who don't necessarily use code. How do they take Polly to where they will be working? And what we are proposing is that you have dashboards on Polly, and for example, we talked about Omix as one of the dashboards that is there. You would be able to embed them in software that you already work with. Again, in itself, the particular list will get defined and refined over time, but you will be able to take the dashboard and put it into a piece of software, whether that be Spotfire, for example, and put it there, so that, let's say, your data keeps changing. Those are things that are live. Your analysis changes on Polly, and it reflects in the software that you use currently. So you just take that dashboard and plug it where you need it. For example, you could have done it in a deck like this, where ideally speaking, you are presenting to your colleagues, and if the source data changes, you might see, and again, you'll be able to choose those things, you might see the charts update here without you having to sort of go back and do that explicitly, right? This something that you already do probably with slides, where you can connect slides and have them be in sync with each other. And you'll be able to do that with some of our dashboards, some of our charts. Again, very much a lot of these ideas are, again, not just Abhishek, there's probably some feedback from your side. Is that not you?
Yeah. Carry on. Is it this now?
Yeah. Yes. So, yeah. As I was saying, that a lot of these are ideas, and we are still figuring out the details. And the way we want to go about it is to work very closely with our community, with our users, to define which one is important, not just in this part, but in the previous part. Which data sets do we bring? which connectors do we build, which links do you use, which mass spec processing software do you use, where do you want to start from. And that's something that we will be very driven by our users' feedback, our community. So do reach out to us and tell us what's important for you, and we'll very actively engage with you on the roadmap as to what should be done and how that should be done as well. So moving on, this is the future, which is partly here and will be here. Good to end with that particular note. This is the world. Is the world that we live in today, and that's another example of two data sets being in sync with each other, your phone and your laptop. So that's just that. So the future looks like this. This is what we want to do, and thank you so much for being here with us and taking time out. I'm sure Abhishek will echo my sentiments. There are a couple of things that we have to just remind you about. Of course, if you have questions, put them here. This is the last session, so first of all, don't stay back. If you do, you won't see a lot happening. The on-demand sessions, and in fact, most of the sessions will be available on this link or on the platform after this conversation is over, after the UGM is over. So do check out for that. If you need recorded videos, most probably we should be able to provide them. And we also have some exciting collateral, some case studies and flyers and whatnot, which are available if you just go up and click on booths. It's right next to speakers, just above your slides. We have some interesting material available there, so do go and check that out. And with that, Abhishek, maybe you want to end on a thank you note?
No. So we'd be happy to answer any questions. I cannot see if they're in the chat window. So if let me see if I can.
They aren't just now, but yeah. Let us know if there are any.
Great. So, I mean, one note that I would like to add is, we would not be here if it was not for all the support and patience and guidance and feedback that we got from our users over the last many years. And I believe we'll not be at the right place if we don't continue getting that, in the years and months to come. So this, we believe, is a conversation. It's a dialogue, not a monologue. And this is a great forum. This is a tribute to all the drug hunters and scientists who have benefited or expressed any interest in working with us over the last few years. And this is how we want to build it. This will be a conversation, and a lot of lessons that we have learned is also can be attributed to a very successful open source project that we have built and brought to the industry and academia. That LMaven, I believe, is one of the best best in class tool that is being used there, and greatly that can be attributed to the community that is behind LMaven. So we see a similar play here as we make Enterprise Atlas, and we try to curate data and make it more valuable for you and your enterprise. Again, thanks for joining us. It was a wonderful experience for us. I hope it was as much fun or even a fraction of it for you. And you got to learn about us, and hopefully you can continue engaging with us in days and months to come. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, and thanks to everyone at Elucidator for making this happen.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a lot of work. Hats off to all of you. And let's get some sleep and some beer. Thank you so much.
Breakfast.